Hi guys, for this tutorial I'll be using Neko Deco Craft Shop exclusive molds. For this one I'll be using their shaker trading card mold. This mold accommodates almost all trading cards. For this one I'll be using some Pokemon cards. Before starting you want to make sure you have nitrile gloves to protect your hands, and as well as a respirator that filters out organic vapors. Resin is a chemical and you don't want to be breathing in all the fumes. And I will be using Art and Glow's epoxy resin. This is my go-to resin. You can use whichever one you prefer. Just make sure you're reading the instructions and mixing accordingly. You want to make sure you're mixing your resin slowly so you minimize micro bubbles, and when you start mixing it'll become cloudy, but once it's thoroughly mixed it'll become clear again. If you notice that there are a lot of bubbles, just let your resin sit for about 2 to 5 minutes and let it naturally degas. And then if there's still micro bubbles, you can use a lighter to pop the remaining ones on the surface. To color my resin, I use powdered pigments and glitter. And the first step is to fill in the border of this mold. Once you fill in the border, you want to make sure you let it cure for a couple hours so that it turns tacky. You don't want it to be fluid and then start mixing in with the clear layer. The next step is to add a clear layer of resin. You want to make sure you put just enough to coat the mold, and then you can insert your card at an angle and slowly push up so you can avoid any trapped air underneath. After inserting your card, you want to make sure you babysit it for a couple minutes because it can shift around. And then once that layer is cured, then you can add the colored layer on the back. And this is how mine turned out. To seal your shaker, you want to use some clear film. I found this pack at Hobby Lobby, or you can use transparency film. I bought this one from Amazon. And you just want to trace around your shape. It doesn't have to be perfect because you will be cutting it down to size. You just want to make sure you're double checking that it fits and that it's not too small. Then you can add your fillings to your shaker. I'm using clay slices, glitter, and micro beads. Then you want to carefully add UV resin along the border, making sure to leave a small gap without so that you can insert your syringe. And then you carefully want to place your film on top, making sure there's no gaps, and then you can cure it. To fill my shaker, I use baby oil with a syringe. You don't want to use water because it can go bad inside the shaker. You carefully want to lift the corner where there's no UV resin and insert your syringe and slowly fill your shaker. You don't want to be too rough because you can accidentally lift the film or cause it to burst. When you're done filling your shaker, you want to make sure you clean off the corner of any oil, and then you can put UV resin and cure it. Afterwards, you want to use an alcohol wipe and give it a thorough cleaning, making sure that there's no more oil on the surface. And to get my pieces ready for the doming process, I use liquid latex to protect them from any resin overspill. I just apply it all around the sides and also to the back. You want to make sure you fully coat it and let it dry 100% before moving on to the next step. Doming is essentially adding a clear layer of resin. You want to make sure you spread it evenly, and if there's any surface bubbles, you can pop them with a lighter. Afterwards, you want to cover them with a container to protect them from any dust particles landing on them while they're curing. After 24 hours, you can check on your piece and it should be done curing. Then you can remove the liquid latex and it comes off fairly easily, and then your piece will be done. And this is how my shaker turned out. I love how it looks. As you can see, it is super clear. There are no dust particles, which is what you want to strive for, so definitely recommend covering your pieces. And you don't have to be limited to using trading cards for this mold. This mold is actually the perfect size for Polaroids. And then I got these little display acrylic stands, and I make the cutest little photo frames for this mold. And definitely check out Neko Deco Craft Shop if you want to get these exclusive molds. I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial, and happy crafting!